After years of speculations, Richard, I'm a free agent now that I've left Discovery. Finally coming clean, the Fast and Loud celebrity acknowledges that he has been concealing a sinister secret that clarifies the reasons behind his disastrous marriages. Why did Discovery actually cancel his show? He abruptly sold his collection of cars. He's finally ready to come clean about what transpired in that $6 million legal battle at the age of 55, and we assure you that it's. Richard Rawlings was born on March 30, 1969, and his life was far worse than anyone had anticipated. A working-class area of Fort Worth, Texas, long before he rose to fame as a television personality and car tycoon, since cars already dominated the globe, one of his early pictures depicts instead of being only a toy, the young child sat proudly in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle provided a peek of what was. Richard had a distinct schedule at 3 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays, when other children were watching cartoons. He would get up in the morning, while most of the city was still asleep, and go out with his father to deliver newspapers, which they would wrap up. After driving through shadowy areas, stacks throw papers onto driveways. On weekends, Richard would ride his bike from house to house for the afternoon edition of school. During those rounds of payment collection, the cars he began were more notable than the money. Observing each one, he was able to determine which house had what year, make, and model. His response was usually the same: I ride by your house twice a day. Some clients were shocked by how much he knew. How would I not be able to see what's in your driveway most days of the week? His father had 2 or perhaps 3 jobs. Made sure he had a car or a motorcycle for himself at all times. Richard watched, learnt, and was rewarded with a solitary toy. That lesson lasted with him. By the time he was 14, Richard had learned that you had to work for what you desired. Purchased his first vehicle in 1983, it was a green 1974 Mercury. He used the money he had saved from years of newspaper routes to pay for it. Children dreamed of reaching 16, but Richard was already a skilled driver. Lawfully, but that didn't stop him from seeing Comet as more than a ride. Claimed that he would burn rubber when performing donuts in the parking lot at school in order to demonstrate its potential. His peers continued to discuss it in spite of the unattractive green hue, which he believed to be the. Things proceeded quickly after that, and by his senior year in 1987, he was driving the nicest automobile ever. He was already driving his third vehicle, a black 1977 Bandit Trans Am. He became the go-to automobile man at Eastern Hills High because he looked like something out of Smokey and the Bandit. School, but he wasn't only flaunting himself, he was also buying and selling cars. Before graduating, he had already flipped about 20 different properties. He earned more money from cars than other teenagers with part-time jobs did. And he wasn't speculating, he had a knack for seeing bargains, making minor improvements, and persuading people to pay more. Then he did, and it served as the basis for everything that followed in the early. Rawlings encountered something even more serious in the 1990s when he was only 22 years old. Operating a vintage muscle car, a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 Fastback, with the. One night, while driving through a difficult area close to Oakland Boulevard in Fort Worth, roofline collectors fantasize about. Richard resisted the carjacker's attempt to remove him from the driver's seat when they surprised him. He could have abandoned the automobile when a bullet tore through his shoulder and down his left arm, but he lived. Culture for all time, but between 1988 and 1990, it simply strengthened his resolve. Richard wore 3 different uniforms before to the tattoos, the fame, or the garage. Served as a paramedic, fireman, and police officer before to turning 21. Richard at least paid attention when his father used to say, "You get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch." Initially, everything changed in 1988 while he was bringing Miller Lite to a nearby. Richard was asked what he intended to do with his life by a regular at the pub, whom he assumed was simply another drunk. Stated he couldn't afford to attend the academy, but he was mentioning police enforcement. The man stared at him and said, "Damn it, I'm." Richard was enlisted at the North within 17 days of becoming the mayor of so-and-so city. After completing the Texas Police Academy, he worked as a police officer in Alvarado before joining the Capel Fire Department, where he donned numerous hats and discovered how to maintain composure when things went wrong. These crisis management abilities would eventually be useful to him in business, but when he was 25, he craved a change, so he sold everything he had and purchased a. He left for California in a Jeep with the intention of starting something new at the time. 6 months later, he returned to Texas broke and clean-cut, with no tattoos or body piercings. He was sleeping on a repossessed car, tattooed, and had his ears pierced. The low point of his sister's couch helped him focus, which is what he needed to do. Begin his own business, which is how he established Lincoln Press in 1999. Although he had no printing experience, he understood branding for the Dallas-based printing and advertising firm. In order to get started within 5 years, he obtained a $100,000 small business loan. In 2004, as Lincoln Press was flourishing, he presented a Lamborghini Gallardo to the company's first customer, who spent $1 million with it, was successful, and it continued to grow until he sold. He was able to pursue his true dream automobiles with the money he received from that transaction when. In 2002, Richard Rawlings opened Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas. Didn't really take off, the store was completed, but it was tiny and lacked air conditioning and running water. Rawlings made a difficult beginning with funds from the sale of his previous company, Lincoln Press. He had the drive, but not the resources. He remained confident in his work, so he and his tiny group hit the road and traveled across the nation to attend rallies, trade shows, and car shows, doing whatever it took to obtain. In May 2007, he and his friend Dennis Collins went out there under the name Gas Monkey, aimed to shatter the original record set, which is considered to be one of the most illustrious records in car culture. The time it took to drive coast in 1979 was 32 hours and 51 minutes. To cruise from New York City to Los Angeles while only thinking about speed, the record remained unbroken for over. On May 12, 2007, 30 years ago, Rawlings and Collins made the decision to give it a try. They chose to target instead of taking the intended Bull Run rally route from Montreal to Key West. For the record, they were driving a modified Ferrari 550 Maranello equipped with. They departed Manhattan at night with additional fuel tanks so they wouldn't have to stop as frequently and arrived at the Portuino Inn in Rundo Beach in a mere 31 hours and 59 minutes. Had succeeded in breaking a 28-year-old record, averaging 87.6 miles per hour. Initially, not everyone accepted the 2,811-mile road, some questioned the route or compared to the original runs, yet despite the debate, the accomplishment was noteworthy since it was audacious, risky, and it was genuine enough to receive a personal recognition from Jay Leno, which meant more to Rawlings than most people recognized. Leno is more than simply a car enthusiast. He is the car enthusiast, as seen by the hundreds of vintage and uncommon automobiles, and he is highly respected in the automotive industry. Thus when Leno acknowledged Rawlings for smashing the Cannonball run record, it was more than just a compliment, it was a potent symbol of approval, which came years before Rawlings became well known due to Fast and Loud, but he gained significant reputation in the automotive industry because to Leno's nod. Between 2002 and 2012, Rawlings needed to gain reputation in order to get the Gas Monkey off the ground was not simple. He invested all of his money in the company. Operated from a garage with no running water, no air conditioning, and just enough tools to get by, he struggled. Locating competent mechanics, locating the appropriate parts, and fighting to keep the lights on at all times. Every client had to be gained during that period, hence the project was risky. began presenting his program concept, hoping to reach more people than simply gearheads by introducing automotive restoration to a broader audience. Anyone who enjoyed a good story with some horsepower behind it, including families and children, but networks rejected the idea since it seemed too dangerous or specialized, so while waiting for a chance, he continued to promote the brand by traveling to other auto exhibitions, meetings and more in-person relationships. It was a gradual process, but it produced something powerful by the time the term "gas monkey" was officially confirmed in 2012. Already had a significant impact on the automotive sector. When Fast and Loud debuted on June 6, 2012, no one anticipated. Richard was the driving force behind transforming a Dallas garage into a worldwide brand. Prior to the cameras, Rawlings was just a man operating a gas monkey garage. Following the show's success, he gained recognition in more than 200 nations. Wasn't only a success in the United States, it was translated into 13 other languages. Of reach made Rawlings a significant force in the entertainment industry virtually immediately. The idea was straightforward but strong. Rawlings and his group looked for abandoned vintage vehicles, the majority of which were damaged or hardly functional. They restored the vehicles to their former glory and sold them for a profit. But what made the tone of the show was unique. While other shows tended toward intense drama or Rawlings defined it as fast and loud, aimed wide and targeted niche audiences. He didn't want to create just another auto show. He wanted it to be enjoyable for both children and grandparents. And fast-moving, and he wanted everyone to feel comfortable while seeing the plan. The cars, the projects, and the enthusiasm captivated onlookers, but the true turning point was when Rawlings employed its success to go well beyond television. He opened gas monkey restaurants and clothes stores, lines, energy drinks, vodka, tequila, and more. The garage remained, but now the basis for something considerably larger was laid by 2020, when Rawlings had constructed an entire empire. Despite the fact that the show concluded after 16 seasons on June 8, 2020, and the show's success was attributed to its stronger brand after 155 episodes. Boiled down to what Rawlings referred to as his cash money formula, which was all about making wiser purchases and selling wiser. Would look all around the nation for vintage cars in poor condition, then use tough haggling and fast money to close agreements quickly. At times, he brought thousands of dollars to persuade a seller to accept his offer right away. Stated that, if you've got it in you, you can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000. Your pocket. That remark wasn't simply a clever television line, it was his actual tactic, and it. Rawlings purchased a Dodge Challenger build, which was one of the best demonstrations of the concept in action, for little over. The team invested $40,000 and $77,000 in the refurbishment, adding special features and improvements that the vehicle sold for $150,000, or a $73,000 profit on a single flip. Wasn't merely. Fortunately, it was the outcome of astute intuition, prudent budgeting, and a thorough comprehension of what customers desired. Another thing that stood out was Rawlings's willingness to take chances. Most people who frequently purchase cars avoid touching rust buckets or frame damage. Automobiles that appeared to have been abandoned for decades, and occasionally even his own staff questioned his choices. Yet, when Rawlings saw promise that others didn't, he once purchased a supercar for. After a breakdown with the previous owner, it had major mechanical problems and cost $400,000, but the Gas Monkey workshop fixed it. The car sold for a significant profit shortly after the rebuild. That sort of. The show's brand was shaped by high-stakes gambling. These dilapidated vehicles delivered more than just cash. Each automobile has a backstory, and every restoration had issues, adding drama and dimension to the show. Visitors were able to observe the amount of time, money, and work that went into the. Some builds took longer than anticipated, and some transformations didn't go as intended. Not all cars turned a profit, but that was part of the allure since it demonstrated the danger of the reward and provided people with a genuine. Examine the commercial aspects of auto restoration over time in a loud and rapid manner. Became one of the most popular reality shows on the Discovery Channel. It ran for 8 full seasons, from June 2012 to June 2020. By season 4, after years of build flips and crazy road excursions, the show had reached its tension was increased by the tight deadlines, unforeseen issues, and last-minute repairs that came with that season. Because of the strain, spectators were never sure if the team would complete a car on schedule or if the sale would go through. This payout kept viewers interested, but in 2020, Rawlings made a significant choice about the experience of Joe Rogers. He disclosed that he had terminated his collaboration with Discovery. Control was the main factor. He desired greater creative freedom and didn't want to be bound by agreements that restricted his options for the future. Leaving the network was risky but also created opportunities. Since then, Rawlings has kept expanding his brand through new video ventures on YouTube and the sustained popularity of Gas Monkey Garage. Although Richard Rawlings was already well known in the automotive industry, he chose to take his brand public in 2013. He introduced the first gas engine in September of that year, going beyond automobiles and engines. Northwest Dallas Monkey Bar and Grill was constructed on the location of the former Firewater Bar and Grill and has a covered 19,000 square feet that served as both a restaurant and a music venue. The venue could accommodate up to 1,200 people, bar and all, and Rawlings made sure to employ someone with actual experience to head it, Alex Mendanza, who had overseen the David will serve as general manager of the House of Blues in Las Vegas. The facility didn't just launch quietly, so Hollister, the kitchen manager, helped define the cuisine aspect of things. 2 days before to the official debut of the American rock group Old 97s. Played the venue's first live performance. From the beginning, it exuded elegance and vitality. By March 2014, Rawlings. He opened a second Gas Monkey Bar and Grill because he was ready to expand. It was a wise move for tourists going through one of the terminals at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. There is now a spot to eat, listen to music, and sample the Gas Monkey brand at the nation's major airports. Rawlings wasn't merely experimenting, he even mentioned seeking a third facility outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He was creating something more than a restaurant with the bar and grill. Evolved into a popular location where nightlife and automobile culture music eventually met. Rawlings upped the ante in October 2014, the same year, throughout the He opened Gas Monkey Live, which was enormous, across the street from the old bar and grill. Before Rawlings acquired it, it was 38,000 square feet and could accommodate 3,000 people. The location was originally Toby Keith's Bar and Grill, which I like. He transformed it into a large-scale event space designed for large punk rock icons. Opening night performances and large crowds caused societal distortion. The stage after which the location began attracting well-known performers and happenings. November 2014 was one of the most talked about months. As part of their All Bad Things Must End tour, the crew gave a free concert there called Dodge Rocks. It wasn't simply a Gas Monkey event, only owners of Dodge vehicles were permitted entry. The Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger, two of Dodge's newest vehicles, were also on display at the concert. Throughout the night, SRT Hellcat combined speed, sound and spectacle gas. Additionally, corporate functions and VIP parties were held at Monkey Live. With adaptable areas and green rooms that made it simple to employ for purposes other than music, despite all the success when the venue had financial difficulties, Gas Monkey Live shuttered its doors in May 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic's pressure prevented the shutdown from continuing. Marked the conclusion of a daring phase in Rawlings' foray into live entertainment, but it didn't stop him from pursuing his goals. When Gas Monkey Live premiered in 2014, Rawlings became the national. Suddenly, his visage appeared everywhere in advertising for Dodge. He was a well-known character from Fast and Loud, and now he was driving while talking about Dodge performance and style. One of the most remarkable aspects of this collaboration was the Dodge Rocks, which helped Dodge sell cars all throughout the nation. Gas Monkey's performance at his own location was the ideal fusion of his passion for, in one night, vehicles, his music space, and a well-known brand come together. The agreement gave Rawlings national recognition for his impact in the automotive industry and helped Dodge connect with auto enthusiasts. As the world continued to expand, he took another step in 2019, this time in the energy sector. Drinks, but rather than starting a business from the ground up, he licensed the Gas Monkey name to maintain control over the picture without incurring production costs. Therefore it was a wise choice for Gas Monkey Energy to introduce two tastes. The branding was light and regular, but it also leaned toward strength, speed, and excitement. By January 2025, the brand had added a touch of the excitement Rawlings brought to everything he did. The third taste, tropical, combined pineapple, passion fruit, and mango. Honey and lemon were also avoided, as were artificial sweeteners and high-fructose corn syrup. Ingredients: the beverage complemented the Rawlings' bold quick lifestyle. And clean, the energy drinks were offered for sale online and at convenience stores. Attended important racing events, such as the NH races and the Indianapolis 500. Although Richard Rawlings has always led a fast-paced existence, his career took off thanks to television and screaming engines. Long before he became famous, his personal life had more ups and downs. Richard became a star after Gas Monkey Garage, and in 1993, he got married for the first time while still. His first wife, Karen K. Grahams, entered his life while he was still trying to figure out where he fit into the automotive industry. The two were married that year, but their romance didn't last in those early, unsure days. Less than a year had passed since their marriage ended, and they were divorced in 1994. There was only a young man pursuing a dream, there was no fan base, no spotlight, and no fame yet. Not much is known about Karen, she remained hidden from the public eye. Dream and a marriage that ended before it truly started. Although their brief relationship never made the news, but that initial divorce marked the beginning of a trend. Demonstrated the difficulty Rawlings had juggling their personal lives and ambitions when the drive to create anything significant arrived. A price, and that price continued to appear, particularly in the years that followed in. He made another attempt in 1999, this time with Suzanne Marie Merrill, whom he married in Las Vegas about the same time that Rawlings began to make headway with the Gas Monkey Garage. Professionally, things were starting to improve, but psychologically, the stress persisted even if his firm was expanding. After 10 years, the relationship ended abruptly because he was traveling frequently. For the majority of them, their divorce in 2009 may have been the end, but in 2015, 6 years after their breakup, Richard and Suzanne had a complex relationship. They reconciled while in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and made the decision to try marriage again. It appeared promising. A second opportunity following years of development and transformation, but by March, it was ended. 2019 saw Rawlings go public once more, this time via Twitter, where he shared the message on March 11, 2019, stating that Suzanne and he were divorcing. Unusual but straightforward, he claimed that media sites such as TMJ were already covering about it, therefore he wanted to be the one to inform his supporters. He clarified that he and Suzanne still cared about the decision, which was made jointly for one another, but following over 2 decades of intermittent relationships, they had finally reached the point of their second divorce. Swiftly left with a monetary settlement that Rawlings had given her, Suzanne. In addition to keeping her Mercedes SL 450 Roadster, she received $300,000 in 2 installments. Richard talked positively about their time together and claimed that, despite the fact that they didn't actually exchange anything, they had. The same person was involved in both of the previous marriages and divorces, which spoke much about how difficult it was for him to reconcile his private and public lives at the time. When Katerina Dye's son arrived, her name made news for still another reason. Been previously married to Darwin Dye's son, a businessman from Texas who sold his business's computer services to